No data, no problem. With the lowest data rates in the country, have extra fun with SLT Extra GB.
For more details, call 1212.
Tonight, AG defied. The Colombo Chief Magistrate grants bail to the IGP and the former Defence Secretary. The case of Trinco 5. Two human rights groups claim that the local judicial mechanism isn't good enough. Guiding hand of terror. 3 nabbed suspects had received terror tutelage under Zahran Hashim. It's a start. Hong Kong's leader says the controversial extradition bill was a failure.
We will not follow up on investigations and prosecutions of offenders.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Tuesday, the 9th of July 2019.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෙයානස් වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෙයානස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti-marks cream.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanaka. Let's start you off with the local stories. Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando were released on bail today. Announcing the order, the Colombo Chief Magistrate Lanka Jayaratne said that the duo cannot be blamed for the negligence of other individuals. Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira, however, announced that he will be appealing against the court order.
Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando were not produced before Colombo Chief Magistrate Lanka Jayaratne today, and instead prison officials produced medical reports of the duo still being treated in hospital. Announcing the bail order, Chief Magistrate Jayaratne said that information presented at the Special Presidential Commission probing the Easter Sunday attacks cannot be considered at the Magistrates Court proceedings. The magistrate also said that Criminal Investigation Department had not even taken statements from the suspects as should be done when they are alleged of murder. She also went on to say that although several letters were directed to the suspects by the State Intelligence Chief prior to the Easter Sunday attacks, he had failed to mention in them any imminent threat. Chief Magistrate therefore cast doubt on what the suspects could have acted on unconfirmed intelligence. Touching on the fact that the State Intelligence Chief informing the suspects of the attacks via WhatsApp Messenger at 8:46 a.m. on the 21st of April, the Colombo Chief Magistrate said such information could have been communicated more systematically. She questioned as to how practical it was to communicate such important and sensitive information via leisure time messenger such as WhatsApp. The Chief Magistrate also said that given the fact the first attack had already happened when the relevant WhatsApp message was received, submissions made by the suspect's legal counsel make it evident that the duo paid attention to the matter at hand. She claimed that although the suspects do not seem to have taken all the necessary action to prevent these attacks, there aren't sufficient evidence to prove that murders were committed owing to their negligence. The Colombo Chief Magistrate went on to say that the Defence Secretary does not hold power over armed forces and intelligence units as done by the Minister of Defence. She also insisted that she is not bound to seek advice of the Attorney General in granting bail to the two suspects. Following which, Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando were released on surety bails of 500,000 rupees each. The case will be taken up again on the 22nd of July. Meanwhile, Coordinating Officer to the Attorney General, State Counsel Nishara Jayaratne said that Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira will appeal at the Colombo High Court against the bail order issued for the duo.
Another suspect who had undergone terror training with Easter Sunday attack ringleader Zahran Hashim was arrested in Kandy today. Police also revealed that 2 other suspects arrested over the last 2 months had also undergone terror training with the ex-leader of National Tawhid Jamaat. Speaking to AdaDerana, police media spokesperson SP Ruwan Gunasekara said that all 3 suspects are currently being interrogated by the Terrorist Investigation Division.
On the 1st of May, officers from the Criminal Investigation Unit in Nikavaratia arrested 41-year-old Ismail Muhammad Nazir to be taken in for questioning over his alleged links to terrorist activities. Today, however, it has been revealed that the suspect, who is a Maulavi, received training by the leader of National Tawhid Jamaat, Zaharan Hashim, at Blackpool in Nuwara. Meanwhile, 21-year-old Zahul Hamid Hizbullah, who was arrested on the 15th of last month, also for questioning over his alleged link to the terrorist group in Ballymurder, was also found to have received training by Zaharan Hashim in Hambantota. In the latest development, another suspect from Aruppula in Kandy was also taken into custody today by the Terrorist Investigation Division. He too was found to have undergone training under the stewardship of Easter attack terror ringleader. According to police media spokesperson SP Ruwangunasekara, the three suspects are currently being interrogated by Terrorist Investigation Division.
President Maithripala Sirisena has taken the initiative to set up a National Security Advisory Board to probe matters related to national security. The board, which is chaired by parliamentarian Dr. Sarath Amunugama, consists of 5 more members.
President Maithripala Sirisena set up a National Security Advisor Board to look into matters related to national security. Dr. Sarath Amunugama functions as the chairman of the board, while President's Counsel calling in that is Sir Nigel Hatch, attorneys at law Javed Yusuf, Dr. Ram Manikalingam and Dr. Suren Raghavan are the other members. The board convened for the first time this morning under the patronage of the head of state. It is expected to strengthen the process undertaken to ensure national security by expressing its views and suggestions in an independent capacity. Meanwhile, UMP MP Rishad Baduddin spoke to media before attending a meeting with former Muslim ministers and President Maithripala Sirisena.
It is not the President who invited us for the meeting, but it was us who asked for a meeting with the President to talk about the current situation of the country, including the security situation. We did not want to talk about ministries.
Accordingly, the meeting was held for about an hour from 8 last evening.
We discussed issues in the police and incidents of political revenge that took place following the civil war. The President said that out of those who are arrested over the Easter Sunday attacks, he will direct the release of those who are not guilty, but he emphasized that he will not release those who are guilty. By now, most are proven not guilty, and I think there are around 50 more who should be released.
Now moving on with other local stories, State Minister of Defence Ruwan Wijewardena identifies building strong partnerships among the maritime community as pivotal in addressing current challenges in the Indo-Pacific region. Speaking at the heads of the Asian Coast Guard Agency's meeting yesterday, he went on to say that such challenges should be managed with a shared framework which is built on a strong foundation.
The inaugural session of the 15th Heads of Asian Coast Guard Agencies meeting took place under the auspices of State Minister of Defence Ruwan Wijewardena in Colombo last evening. The 4-day meeting, which saw the participation of representatives from 22 member states, come at a time when China recently gifted a vessel to increase the operational capabilities of the Sri Lankan Navy, and US State Department requesting the US Senate to provide $30 million in foreign military financing to support the department's new security cooperation program in South Asia, the Bay of Bengal initiative, that will build maritime and border security capacity for Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and the Maldives.
Sri Lanka, being a maritime nation strategically located at a central position of this region, the economic well-being, prosperity and security lies very much in the oceans that surround us. I strongly believe that our nation's success and progress based on its vision of blue economy dependent on safe and secure seas. The emergence of non-traditional threats in the region such as piracy, maritime terrorism, illegal trafficking and environmental degradation are major concerns in the Indo-Pacific region. Thus, the opportunities and challenges that exist in our maritime domain need to be addressed with strength, wisdom and goodwill. As no nation is capable of overcoming challenges and threats in the maritime domain in isolation, the importance of fostering stronger partnership among maritime community holds a great deal of significance than never before. We need to work towards establishing stronger connections by fostering maritime partnership. It is imperative that the maritime affairs, concerns and issues are managed in a shared framework in a comprehensive manner. In order to make such collaboration effective and long-lasting, I believe it should be built on a strong foundation which will augment the interoperability among other agencies.
A feud between the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy, which came to light with the repair work of an oil pipeline being halted, has now moved on to another field. Several areas in the country encountered power outages for about an hour last night. The Ceylon Electricity Board says it is the result of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation temporarily halting fuel supply to them. Sipetco, in turn, points to the CEB exceeding its credit limit. Both parties, however, say that the situation is now back to normal.
The maximum daily consumption of electricity in Sri Lanka amounts to 2,600 megawatts. Generation of hydropower, however, has reduced to 10% with the existing dry weather conditions in the Central Hills. This has resulted in having to rely on power generated by thermal power plants up to 85%, including the Norachole coal power plant. Ceylon Electricity Board buys fuel from the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation under a credit limit of 80 billion rupees. Sipetco yesterday decided to temporarily halt supplying fuel to the Ceylon Electricity Board since it was exceeding the credit limit. According to the media spokesperson of the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy, Sulakshana Jayawardena, CB was forced to halt electricity supply for 1 hour in several areas in the country last night. He pointed out that due to the shortage of electricity amounting to 150 megawatts, some small-scale power plants were unable to function. Jayawardena also pointed out that the power cut was a result of the shortage in power generation. Speaking to AdaDerana today, Sulakshana Jayawardena also said that measures are being taken to utilize the contribution of alternative power plants, adding them to the national grid. He also said that necessary amounts of fuel is being distributed to power plants around the country at present and there won't be any need to further limit the power supply. A discussion was also held between the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources Development and the Sri Lanka Electricity Board last evening. In the meantime, speaking to AdaDerana, Acting Deputy Manager of Sipetco, MSM Niaz said that the supply of fuel to power plants resumed at around 1 this morning.
The apparent financial crisis faced by the Ceylon Electricity Board was the hot topic in Parliament as well. Minister of Power and Energy Ravi Karunanayake points the finger at providing electricity at low cost despite the production cost being greater. The Ceylon Electricity Board is facing a financial problem here. By selling a unit of electricity at 16 rupees after spending 23 rupees to generate it, we're incurring losses of around 40 billion rupees every year. As per our Parliamentary Act, we can't earn our own money because the profits must be sent to the Ministry of Finance. We have to pay 80,000 million rupees to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. We're at a very unfortunate state.
කන්සල් සංස්ථාවට රුපියල් කෝටි 8,000ක් විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය යන තියෙනවායි කියලා. මම දැනගන්න කැමතියි මේ මුදල කොයි කාලෙදලද වර්ධනය වුණේ?
මම දන්න විදිහට 2017 අගෝස්තු මාසයේ සිට බිලියන් 79.8ක් මේ වෙන මොහොත දක්වා.
The Permanent High Court at Bar has ordered that the final verdict of the case against former President's Chief of Staff Gamini Senarath and 2 others to be delivered on the 8th of August. The case was filed for allegedly misappropriating 500 million rupees in funds belonging to Litrogas, and it was taken up again before a trial at Bar consisting of judges Sampath Abekon, Sampath Vijayaratna and Champa Janaki Rajaratna today. After the defence and the prosecution submitted documents pertaining to the case, the judge bench ordered both parties to submit any other documents relating to the case. Subsequently, the trial at Bar ordered that the final verdict of the case be issued on the 8th of August. The Attorney General filed the case against the defendants under the Public Property Act for allegedly misappropriating 500 million rupees belonging to Litrogas Lanka by investing in ventures including the Hilanka Hotels and Spa Hotel project from the 1st of February 2014 to the 20th of January 2015. Now, former chairman of Ratnalanka security company Victor Summera, who was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department over the AdaDerana case, has been remanded until the 19th. The order was delivered by the Galle Chief Magistrates Court today. Summera was arrested yesterday after he surrendered to the CID. On the 5th of July, the Attorney General informed the Acting Inspector General of Police to immediately arrest the chairman of AdaDerana Maritime Services Private Limited, Nisanka Senadipati, and former Ratnalanka chairman Victor Summera and 7 others. The Attorney General had also informed the Acting IGP that there is no legal obstacle to immediately arrest the suspects in connection with the AdaDerana case and produce them before court. Now, two leading human rights groups have condemned the court's decision to acquit 13 defendants linked to the killing of 5 youth in Trincomalee back in 2006, known as the Trinco 5 case. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch took the opportunity to pile pressure on Sri Lanka to have a court with international participation set up in the island. The 13-year-old case came to a close last Wednesday, citing lack of evidence, with 12 personnel from the police special task force and a police officer being acquitted from the case. Based on the latest development, the two human rights groups are calling Sri Lanka's commitment to the 2015 UN Human Rights Council resolution into question.
On the 2nd of January 2006, 5 youths were shot dead on a beach in Trincomalee, and the incident has been spurring controversy ever since. The case, known as the Trinco 5, remains one of the highest-profile incidents in Sri Lanka to receive international attention, listed in 2014 by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights report on the island as one of 4 emblematic cases of the government's failure to ensure accountability and having been raised repeatedly in international forums. Authorities, however, maintain that the 5 are LTTE terrorists. Last Wednesday, however, the Trincomalee Magistrates Court acquitted 12 members of the police special task force and a police officer linked to the deaths. The case was brought to a close, citing lack of evidence. Commenting on the outcome of the decision, however, human rights watchdogs Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International voiced their displeasure over the outcome of the case, despite the incident having gone through Sri Lanka's judicial process. According to a joint communique, South Asia Director at Human Rights Watch, Meenakshi Ganguly, said, quote, Sri Lanka authorities have proven unable to obtain justice for the murders of 5 young people, unquote. She added that the failure to convict anyone in this emblematic case after 13 years demonstrates the need for a court with international participation that can properly protect victims and witnesses. South Asia Director for Amnesty International, Biraj Patnaik, also had his say, saying that, quote, the acquittals in the Trinco 5 case mean that the government's obligation to bring to justice those responsible for the murders remains, and the government's monitoring Sri Lanka's compliance with the 2015 Human Rights Council resolution should put this case at the top of their concerns, unquote. Meanwhile, taking to Twitter, the United Nations Human Rights Group said, quote, they stand in solidarity with the victims' families and urge the authorities to ensure accountability and redress for the Trinco 5 crime.
Attorney at law Swastika Arulingam is disappointed with the access average Sri Lankans have to legal aid, saying that people with deeper pockets have access to better lawyers. She was speaking at a workshop in Colombo titled Understanding the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights Act and its Impact on Human Rights and Social Peace in Sri Lanka. Speaking at the same forum, Executive Director of Law and Society Trust in Sri Lanka, Dr. Sakuntala Kadragamar, voiced concerns over the unsubstantiated allegations being levelled on particular persons from all sides, which lead to conundrums in terms of legal action.
What is hate speech to one? I mean, if I'm taking, say, the new the diatribe that has gone on, saying we must boycott Muslim shops, saying they are sterilizing us. Now, is this based on fact? Is it based on hate? And who will dare, depending on who says it? If some student says it, you will maybe prosecute them. If a priest says it, you won't. So that is something that we need to be able to challenge, really. For example, in Dr. Shafi's case, I think if he brings a criminal defamation case, that whether he has a chance to, it may take another 20 years for him to hear it, but if they're serious about it, that's something they can do. Whom does he file the case against? A newspaper? The GMO? You know, what is his recourse?
Meanwhile, attorney at law Swastika Arulingam said that only those with deeper pockets have better access to lawyers and that state institutions like the Legal Aid Commission are not well equipped to help those who need legal assistance.
But I always like to say in Sri Lanka, our justice system is directly proportionate to the amount of money we can give to the lawyer. It's not rhetoric, it's a fact. You pay more money, you get a better lawyer and you get better access to courts. In terms of free lawyers, in terms of proper legal representation and all that, in Sri Lanka as a policy, we have the Legal Aid Commission. The Legal Aid Commission, in my opinion, is very weak. And as a principle and a policy, it does not take up cases under ICCPR Act. It does not take up cases under, at least when I was working there, it did not take up cases under Prevention of Terrorism Act. So when people need legal representation the most, but we don't have a system where a person gets a right to a lawyer in the magistrate's court. You have a right to a lawyer in the high court. When the initial case gets rolled, So as to access to justice, as to these great ideals of justice and this thing, my stand has always been, until you have a national legal service, a person can have access to free lawyers. Until it becomes a right for you, then you can't talk about justice in this country, because it's a privatized system. How do we as lawyers push for a structure and push for a system? That, of course, we have a role to play. We can have access to parliamentarians and say this is what is happening in our courts. We can go and lodge complaints in the Human Rights Commission, asking the Human Rights Commission to give guidelines. We can push the police to act according to certain rules and regulations which they are not doing. We can lobby with the parliament. There are so many things we can do because we know the law.
The World Health Organization today announced that Sri Lanka has eliminated measles, interrupting transmission of the indigenous virus that causes the killer childhood disease. According to the Regional Director of the WHO Southeast Asia, Dr. Poonam Ketrapal Singh, the achievement comes at a time where measles cases are increasing globally. An independent verification committee of the World Health Organization had reviewed in detail all data and ongoing efforts for measles elimination in the island. The country reported its last case of measles caused by an indigenous virus in May 2016. The communique went on to say that elimination of measles is a good indicator of the strength of immunization systems generally, and by extension of the quality and reach of primary health care systems. We got more news coming up on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Malik Samaravikrama last week urged the Chinese business community to make use of Sri Lanka's preferential duty-free treatment by the US and Europe as a way to offset the growing tariff pressure of the trade war. The minister went on to say that this could be made possible if China is able to set up more manufacturing plants in Sri Lanka. With such developments taking place, renowned international economist Dr. Howard Nicholas witnesses considerable potential for Sri Lanka when it comes to manufacturing, as not just China but many other developed countries too are also looking at relocating their production facilities from their countries.
Sri Lanka itself had a period of considerable success in the early 1990s when the government embarked on the famous 200 factories strategy of President Premadasa. And that yielded great returns to the Sri Lankan economy. Now I see considerable potential in the future because many countries are trying to relocate their production out of the advanced countries and out of China. And they're searching for new locations. I don't see why Sri Lanka can't pick up a considerable amount of the relocated industries.
The all-share price index hit its highest close since 18th of April on Friday, buoyed by the government's decision to launch a $2.2 billion Japan-funded light railway transit project and some other stalled infrastructure projects. The SPI today ended up 0.18% at 5,514.40. The market turnover was 550.1 million rupees, in line with this year's daily average. Foreign investors sold a net 63.8 million rupees worth of shares today, extending the year-to-date net foreign outflow to 6.97 billion rupees. We now have Achudan Srirangan from First Capital Holdings on how the markets performed today.
In the secondary market, yield curve remained broadly unchanged, with the market witnessed a thin volume as the market participant was seen adapting a wait-and-see approach ahead tomorrow primary bill auction. Equity market reversing the negative sentiment witnessed yesterday, bros rebound back to the positive territory with a slightly uptrend to close at 5,514 level while gaining 10 points. A net foreign outflow was witnessed during the last day, reversing the trend of the net foreign inflow witnessed for the last 2 consecutive days.
And now, to bring a currency update, the Sri Lankan rupee closed firm at 175 rupees and 72.80 cents against the US dollar, compared with yesterday's close of 176 rupees and 5 to 15 cents, as dollar sales by banks surpassed importer greenback demand. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day.
is international news on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Hong Kong's leader says that the controversial bill, which is at the heart of numerous recent protests, is now dead. Addressing a media briefing, Carrie Lam said the government's work on the bill, which would have allowed extradition to the Chinese mainland, had been a total failure. But she did not say that it had been withdrawn completely, as thousands of protesters had been demanding. Instead, she is committing herself to allowing the bill to remain in limbo until the current legislative session ends in 2020, letting the bill die by default.
But some members of the public now have very little trust towards the government, and we have heard the voices of many people expressing their lack of trust with regards to the handling of the extradition bill. In recent protests, there have been banners asking the question, will the government eventually return this law for consideration of the Legislative Council? I do not understand the worry. So today I again state clearly that the revision of this extradition treaty has reached the end of its life and passed away.
The bill is dead. Any demand that we should grant an amnesty at this stage, in other words, we will not follow up on investigations and prosecutions of offenders, is not acceptable, because that bluntly goes against the rule of law in Hong Kong, and also deviate from the very important principle laid down in the Basic Law that no one should interfere with the Department of Justice prosecutorial decisions.
The first semi-final of the ICC Cricket World Cup 2019 is currently underway in Manchester between New Zealand and mighty India. Opting to bat first, the Black Caps were on 211 for the loss of 5 wickets when rain stopped play in the 47th over. Now, moving on to tennis, it was a truly exciting second Monday at Wimbledon yesterday, with the longest women's match in this year's championship gripped the crowd for over 3 hours. In the men's draw, the big three, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal, put on masterclasses to secure safe passage to quarterfinals.
French Open champion Rafael Nadal eased past Portuguese João Sousa 6-2, 6-2, 6-2 to reach his 7th Wimbledon quarter-final. Roberto Bautista Agut's impressive Wimbledon form showed no sign of ending when he beat Benoit Paire in straight sets 6-3, 7-5, 6-2.
Game, set a match, Bautista Agut.
Defending Wimbledon champion Novak Djokovic meanwhile fired 25 winners and did not face a single break point in a routine 6-3, 6-2, 6-3 win over French youngster Hugo Humbert. Serbian top seed will meet Belgian David Goffin, who overcame Fernando Verdasco in 4 sets 7-6, 2-6, 6-3, 6-4. Elsewhere, Sam Querrey beat his fellow American Tennis Sangren in 4 sets, 3 of which went to tie-break 6-4, 6-7, 7-6, 7-6. In the meantime, ruthless Roger Federer reached into his 17th Wimbledon quarter-final with a 6-1, 6-2, 6-2 demolition of Matteo Berrettini. But contrary to what the scoreline suggests, this did not require masterclass from the Swiss great. In the women's draw, world number 1 and French Open champion Ash Barty was knocked out of Wimbledon after losing 3-6, 6-2, 6-3 in a ferocious battle with 55th ranked American Alison Risk. Risk's win means she reaches her first ever Grand Slam quarter-final at the 30th attempt and at the age of 29. Elsewhere, 8th seed Elina Svitolina beat her Croatian rival Petra Martic 6-4, 6-2. China's Zhang Shuai also made it to the quarterfinals, winning a high-quality match against Diana Yastremska 6-4, 1-6, 6-2. Serena Williams, meanwhile, reached her 14th Wimbledon quarterfinal by overwhelming Spain's Carla Suarez Navarro 6-2, 6-2, even though she was not at her magnificent best on court 1. Coco Gauff's dream Wimbledon run came to an abrupt end when the consistency of 7th seed and former world number 1 Simona Halep proved a step too far for the 15-year-old American, who went down 6-3, 6-3. In the meantime, Britain's Jo Konta staggered away from a head-on collision with twice champion Petra Kvitova for a 4-6, 6-2, 6-4 victory which put her in the quarter-finals. Unseeded Karolina Muchova outlasted third seed and fellow Czech Karolina Pliskova to reach the last eighth of Wimbledon in the longest women's match at the championship so far this year. Muchova won 4-6, 7-5, 13-11 in 3 hours 17 minutes.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.